Welcome to Airgun Extra, brought to you in association with Crackshot. In this week's episode, I'm delighted to have a review of the Taipan Veteran II PCP. First up though, I'm sharing a few tips that I hope will help you to shoot more rabbits. Right, well the plan is to head out after some rabbits this evening, but it's still a bit early, so I thought I'd kick off by running through a few rabbit shooting tips that I hope might help you to put a few more in the bag. And it seems quite timely because rabbits are really bouncing back in a lot of areas, so much so that they're causing pretty serious damage in some places. And Rich and I have certainly noticed it on some of our permissions where landowners are noticing obviously the usual damage to banks, rabbits eating their way through grass crops, and also the usual burrows posing problems and a danger on horse and pony paddocks. But also late summer going into early autumn is a great time to shoot rabbits. Anyway, there are still quite a few young ones about, so they're not too crafty. But also if you intend to eat your rabbits, those 1/2 to 3/4 grown ones that are still around are really nice and tender and by far the best ones to eat. My first tip is to get your timings right. Now, there are certain times of day that can be a complete waste of time. Now, certainly during hot, dry weather, the middle part of the day is often a dead loss, absolute waste of time, unless you're somewhere that's absolutely overrun with rabbits and they're very, very active. Dawn can be a really productive time. If you're not an early riser, you'll be relieved to know that dusk can also be very effective. Night shooting can also be good for rabbits, but that is an entirely different ball game and something we could dedicate a whole video to. So looking at dusk shooting, it tends to be, again, if you've had a dry day and you get a slight dewfall, it softens the grass and those rabbits are then eager to come out and feed on those tender shoots. The key is to get out on your shoot, do your reconnaissance and find out when the rabbits are most active there. As with any live quarry shooting, you need to have absolute faith in your kit. Now, it's not necessarily about having to spend a fortune, but you do need to be confident that you and your setup can put pellets in the right place. Now, as we're on the subject of kit, it's probably a timely point to go through the setup that I'm using or going to be using this evening. So the gun is the FX DRS Classic. Sub 12 foot-pounds, 177 caliber. It's lovely and quiet, very, very accurate. I've paired it with QYS streamlined pellets, the heavy 9.56 grain version. I've done a lot of range practice and testing with this setup, and I know that with those pellets, this gun is extremely accurate. Now, I haven't got the standard stock on it. You can see I've dropped it into a really nice stock from Form. Now, apart from looking beautiful and sort of improving the pride and the pleasure that I get from using this gun, it's got a push button height adjustable cheek piece, and that just enables me to ensure that I've got really good eye alignment with the scope. It's particularly relevant this evening actually. I'm using my usual sports match scope mounts, but I've actually got some adapters here that's rising it up and just making it a little bit higher than usual, so it's nice that I've been able to adjust that cheek piece. And that's because I've been swapping this scope around between Picatinny rails. So I've got the Picatinny mounts on here, and I've just got a Picatinny to dovetail adapter to fit this setup. The scope that I have cradled in there is the Hawke Sidewinder 30 SF. It's a great scope that I use a heck of a lot. Really good optical quality. Now, I've said before, it's possible we lose some of that quality in the scope cam. There are additional lenses, so you're never going to get a true representation of just how sharp that scope picture is going to look. But I've used this scope for years. It's a brilliant all-rounder. Quite significantly also, it does have an illuminated reticle. Now, that's far from essential, but it can be very, very handy if you're shooting rabbits at dusk, going into nighttime, gloomy conditions. Sometimes a black crosshair can get lost. Switch on the illuminated reticle. It just means you've got a clearly contrasting aim point in those gloomy conditions. So that's my kit, and I think another important message for me and for you shooters out there is to familiarise yourself with it and practice, so you know exactly how it's performing before you head out and target live quarry. When you're trying to outwit rabbits, a really important thing to always bear in mind is the senses that they have to detect your approach. Now, their eyesight isn't brilliant, but you still want to make as much use as you can of any cover and try to keep off of the skyline. Now, one sense that is very finely tuned on rabbits is their sense of smell. So you want to do everything you can to avoid carrying any of those alien smells from the human world into the field with you. So think about things like strong deodorant, aftershave, cigarette smoke, car air fresheners. Anything you can do to eliminate those or avoid them before you go out rabbit shooting will be an advantage. And obviously, if possible, if you're out stalking, try to approach from downwind if you can, so that your scent is being blown away from the rabbits. Now, rabbits also have brilliant hearing and a very frustrating ability to be able to detect vibrations through the ground. So when you're out stalking rabbits, you really need to try and wear the lightest footwear that you can get away with, and try and keep your footfalls as light and gentle as possible. As you're closing in on rabbits, they will give you a lot of clues as to how to continue approaching through their body language. So generally, if a rabbit has got its head down and it's feeding, it's relaxed and probably not aware of you. So you can generally continue slowly, quietly, carefully. The second a rabbit appears to be alert, particularly if it sits up and starts testing the ground with its ears, testing the air with its ears and with its whiskers, you know that something's concerned it. It's on high alert. That is your cue to freeze absolutely dead still. Now hopefully once you stop moving, there's no movement to attract attention, there's no sound, they should eventually think that the threat has passed, settle back down to feeding again. Once you see their body language relax, that's your cue to, again, very quietly and cautiously start closing in again. One incredibly simple way to eliminate almost all of the movement and noise that can alert rabbits to your presence is to set up an ambush. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to do that is to shoot prone, but if you find shooting down on your belly uncomfortable, you could get away with sitting on a chair, maybe behind a blind, and shooting off of sticks. If you are prepared to put up with the discomfort of getting down on your belly, that will keep you right off the skyline, and of course you're also then rewarded with the luxury of very stable shots from the support of a bipod. Another brilliant thing about ambush tactics is that they enable you to dictate the distance that you'll be shooting over. So if you think you're only confident tackling shots out to 25 meters, all you need to do is set yourself up 25 meters from where you expect the rabbits to emerge. Now, obviously it's important to put yourself in the right place, but there are usually plenty of clues to help you find those hot spots. If you don't actually see rabbits, look out for their burrows and their droppings. It's all about picking up on those clues and setting yourself up where you're going to get maximum action over the ranges that you're comfortable shooting over. Now finally, I would say, if you are planning an ambush and there are rabbits above ground when you arrive, I wouldn't usually attempt to stalk them. I think that for rabbits, seeing you creeping around, it can really put them on edge. Now if it's just one rabbit and you shoot it, it's not a problem, but if there's a group of rabbits, they don't want to see you prowling about like a predator. So what I would often tend to do instead is just walk up quite confidently in the hope that the rabbits just think I'm another walker, maybe a dog walker, maybe just someone out for a stroll of an evening. That will then send them to ground, far less spooked and hopefully far more inclined to quickly emerge back out once they think that threat has passed. So there's a few pointers for your rabbit shooting. I'm going to get myself settled in now and hopefully put some of them to good use. Right, well, I've set up in an area that we actually shot from a few weeks ago, and it's a good spot because it actually enables me to cover two quite different zones. So just off to the left there's a rubbly bank that the rabbits have been digging into, and off to the right hand side it's a bit grassier than that dry old patch over there, and it's recently been grazed down short. It looks really rabbity. The grass is lusher over there, and for my money that is probably where I'd expect to see the bulk of the activity. We'll see how it goes. There's one out. Well, there's the first one. Apologies because I didn't fine tune the focus, so I hope that scope cam footage isn't too blurry, but that rabbit, although it wasn't a particularly big one, it was quite alert. I think it knew we were here, so I just wanted to get on and take the shot. And so much for me saying that the bulk of the action would be on the green lush grass over to my right. That one was in the dry old rubbly area. It was about 30 metres. I've got this set up zeroed at 35, so the shot just needed just a touch of hold under, and yeah, it went exactly where I wanted it to, and it's the first rabbit in the bag. There's one out on the grass. And another one. That one was a little bit closer than the first one, but still need a little bit of hold under. It sensed us, I'm pretty sure of that. Sat up bolt upright, but that was actually really handy because it put its head up over the brow and gave me a really clear shot. And I'm also pleased to say that I focused in properly on that one, so hopefully we've got some clearer footage than the first shot. In fact, on the subject of footage, we get asked a lot about the scope cam setup that we use. It's a GoPro side mount adapter, like a camera mount from Eagle Vision Cam. I've been using this one for years. It's a brilliant piece of kit. Most of the scope cam footage that you see us shoot through normal day scopes will be shot through this setup. Most importantly, from my point of view, it's very easy to use, and yeah, as long as I do my bit, it tends to get good footage. Bit of a kick from that one, but it's stone dead. It was hit straight through the head. Very close to where I had the first one, actually. Now, that was quite a small rabbit, but that's another tip that I would have to say, you know, about rabbit shooting, is that you do have to be pretty ruthless, particularly, you know, if it's a serious pest control situation, because if you don't shoot small rabbits, the farmer, your landowner, will find somebody else who will. And the fact is that small rabbits soon become bigger rabbits that are equally as destructive. And also goes back to the point that I made earlier, smaller rabbits are very good to eat, and I don't like to waste anything I shoot. Yeah, and any surplus rabbits that I have that we don't eat in our household, they go to a local birds of prey centre, so nothing gets wasted. Right, well the light's really fading now. To be honest, I'd expected things to really pick up as dusk closed in, but it hasn't. Hopefully the rabbits will become more active under the cover of darkness. So we're now going to switch over to our night shooting and night filming setup. And if that goes to plan, we'll show you it in another video. Don't forget to give us a follow on the Airgun Extra Facebook page. We use it to keep you up to date on all of our video and podcast releases and all of the free articles that we're posting on airgunextra.com. Right then, let's take a look at the Taipan Veteran II. Right, we've got a bit of a beast here this week, and it's an airgun that I've really been looking forward to getting my hands on. It is the Taipan Veteran II. Now this airgun is distributed in the UK by Range Right, and prices start at £1,735. Now this is the tactical model, 700mm barrel in grey laminate. And this one has a recommended retail price of £2,085. Now that is serious money, but for those who can afford it, it buys a serious quality Czech-made mega gun. As you can see, this is a bullpup airgun. It weighs about 4 kilos, and in this longer barrel option, overall length is 960mm. Now that is quite a substantial bullpup, but there is a shorter 550mm barrel version, and the overall length of that one is 150mm or 6 inches shorter. Now, being quite a substantial airgun, it is very stable. It may not be the sort of gun you'd want to carry around the field all day, but it is one heck of a performer on the bench. The stock is pretty minimal, and you're likely to find your leading hand somewhere around the neck of that large carbon bottle. Now there are several stock options, including synthetic, walnut and forest laminate. This one is the grey laminate, which I think goes very well with the gun's overall aesthetic. So you have an AR-15 type pistol grip, which can be swapped out. It is fairly slim, but it's very nicely grooved to cradle the hand. At the back, you've got a fairly hard rubber butt pad, which feels comfortable enough in the shoulder. Now there's no dedicated cheek support to speak of. Instead, you just nestle down into the block. It's actually more comfortable than I'd expected, though I do wonder if it could be a bit cold in the winter. What I will say though is that it obviously ensures that the gun is completely ambidextrous. As I would expect from an airgun at this price point, build quality is excellent. Finish and engineering appear to be flawless throughout. Now, scope mounting is via a Picatinny rail that gives you about 190mm of clamping space. It has 20 MOA built in and feels to be incredibly sturdy. Now there is another rail for accessory attachment on the underside of the gun just in front of the trigger guide. As I've said, this gun is the 700mm barrel option. That's a fully floating barrel, but it does incorporate a carbon fibre shroud or sleeve,
which I imagine could assist with barrel tensioning. Now, at the front, there is an unmissable silencer, which is over 300mm long. It is very effective and reduces this airgun's muzzle report to a mere whisper. The Taipan Veteran II runs a multi-shot magazine which holds 10 pellets or slugs in this .22 caliber version. 177 and .25 options are also available. So it comes supplied with 2 magazines and a single shot tray. And I must say I really like the design of this magazine. It is very simple, much like the design incorporated into the Valiant HW100, which really is no bad thing. It is incredibly easy to load, and its simplicity suggests to me that there's virtually nothing that can go wrong with it. The magazine is driven by a side lever mechanism that can be reversed to the opposite side for left-handers. Now, I think it's really well positioned for intuitive operation just above the pistol grip. Now, quite interestingly, the notched handle actually stands up rather than having the usual drop-down design, but that keeps it well out of the way of the trigger. Now, you do actually get a different option for the handle component supplied, and the alternative actually matches the colour of the trigger and the safety catch. Now, most importantly, the mechanism works brilliant. It manages to feel slick and positive at the same time. Now, it also incorporates an anti-double loading system, so you can end up with 2 pellets up the spout at the same time. The trigger blade has quite an elegant looking matte gold finish. Now, it's actually quite a simple design. It's got a gentle curve and a fairly wide flat face, which delivers plenty of feel. Now, the 2-stage mechanism is adjustable, but as is always the case, I wanted to test it straight out of the box to see what it's like on its factory setting. Now, as I've said before, bullpup triggers can sometimes feel a little bit notchy because of their extended linkage, but this one is excellent. The first stage is fairly light, fairly short, but there is a noticeable stop before the light, crisp second stage breaks incredibly predictably. There is a switch type safety catch positioned just in front of the trigger blade, and it's taken me a bit of getting used to because its positions are the opposite way around from most of the safety catches of this type that I've become accustomed to. So with this one, you push it forwards to make the gun safe and then click it back when you're ready to take the shot. In terms of air reserves, you have got a large 480cc carbon fibre bottle up front. Now, that bottle is valved, so you can unscrew it without having to empty it first. Now, there is also air stored in the cylinder, and I think that gives a combined total of around 650cc. Maximum fill pressure is 250 bar, and you can see your onboard air reserve, the pressure of which is displayed on the gauge at the front of the cylinder. This is a regulated airgun and it is very consistent. Now, variation is remaining within 5 feet per second over a 10-shot string. So this is a .22 caliber sub 12 foot-pound model, and it's running at around 11.4 foot-pounds. Now, I've been giving it small top-up charges during my testing, but I reckon you can probably expect in the ballpark of 300 shots from a full charge in a sub 12 .22 model. Now, when it is time to refill, you simply need to plug in the probe, and that goes into the inlet just by the connection for the bottle. Apart from delivering very consistent power output, the Taipan Veteran II is also equipped with a high quality barrel. So this is an airgun that has been built for precision shooting. With that in mind, I wanted to put a decent optic on it, so I've paired it with the Valiant Zephyr. Now, the first thing I found was it's actually not too pellet fussy, and as long as I've run it on decent quality round head pellets, it has been really impressively accurate. Shooting at steel spinners, it's hitting 30mm spinners with relative ease at 50 meters. Moving on to paper targets, it is practically pellet on pellet at 25 meters. and even at 40 metres it is still delivering tight single hole groups. The simplistic and very functional styling of the Taipan Veteran II almost certainly isn't going to be to everybody's taste, but there is no questioning its performance. Now, it is an expensive airgun, but that is because it's been built to an incredibly high standard and it has the potential to elevate your shooting to another level. It has given a remarkable account of itself on the range during my testing, and I can't wait to take it out hunting. Now, I'm also really looking forward to getting my hands on an FAC rated model. If this one is anything to go by, that should be blistering, so stay tuned.
The Great British Shooting Show, held on the 13th to the 15th of February 2026 at the NEC Birmingham. Book tickets online at shootingshow.co.uk.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for this week, but we'll be back with more in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks also to Crackshot. There's a link to their website in the show description. As I said, we're back with more in a fortnight. In the meantime, enjoy your shooting and stay safe.